Which NFL teams are the most loaded on the defensive side of the football? What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL video. In this video, ranking every position group on the defensive side of the football, determining which teams have the most depth on their rosters on defense. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button. This is an exercise of depth, looking at the deepest depth charts at every defensive position. Let's begin with the interior defensive line. The interior defensive line is a position where I look for a starting duo that can be dominant and then rotation players that can fill in for injury or just throughout the course of the game. The variety really matters here. You need pass rushers, you need run defenders, you need well-rounded interior linemen. All of it helps. Beginning at number 3, I have the New York Jets, led by Quinnen Williams and John Franklin Myers, who played a majority of his snaps last season at edge, I believe, thanks to Carl Lawson coming back and thanks to their first-round draft pick. He moves back to the inside where he's been very dominant throughout his young career. Paired with Quinnen Williams, it's a perfect combination of two guys that add versatility, strength. They're great against the run. They're very good pass rushers. I think this is where the strength of the Jets' Robert Saleh defense is going to come from this interior duo and their ability to dictate terms to the offense. Behind them, you have a strong run defender in Sheldon Rankins. Nathan Shepard is a solid rotation player as well, majority against the run. And then Solomon Thomas is also a flexible edge interior defensive lineman type of player. So you've got a variety of playmakers on the Jets on the D line. Very good job of building this up by Joe Douglas. At number 2, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Vita Vea, the most unique nose tackle in the NFL today. There is just no other player in the game right now that plays like Vita Vea. He is a massive man who is the best run defender in the middle of a defense in the NFL today. But he is such an extraordinary athlete. He can bull rush. He can drop back into coverage. This guy does crazy things. He is just an incredible athlete. You pair him with Akeem Hicks, who basically replaces Ndamukong Suh, and the Bucs have an upgrade when it comes to a pass rusher that can just be an absolute force in the interior of a defensive line. William Golston is one of the more underrated players at this position. He's their third rotation player. And Logan Hall was a first-round pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. They believe that he can be this hybrid edge interior defensive lineman who can get after the quarterback and use his athleticism to do so. They've got a ton of depth here. Even Nunez Roches is a solid player, especially against the run. They always have a ton of depth. They are always one of the better run defenses in the league, and it all starts here in the middle. At number 1, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are loaded on the interior. It begins with their first-round pick, Jordan Davis, who is a one-man run-stopping crew. He will eliminate the run from the opponent. That's what he did at Georgia, and that's what he will do in the NFL, in my opinion. You allow him to just stop the run because, hey, you got Javon Hargrave, who's one of the best pass rushers at this position in the NFL and dominated last season, his best ever NFL season. Fletcher Cox is a vet of this game and a future Hall of Famer. And even a guy like Milton Williams can also play off the bench. This is a foursome that is absolutely fearsome. At the edge position, what's important to me is having at least 3 players that can be contributors in every game on every series. You need at least 3 players that can contribute on every series. But when it comes to evaluating this position, a lot of teams have more than 3. So 4, 5, 6 even players will show up with the top 5 units. At the edge position, I went with 5 depth charts because I simply could not decide. At number 5, we have the Las Vegas Raiders with Max Crosby and Chandler Jones on the edges to begin with. These two guys are going to dominate games, and I rarely see them coming off the field. They both can play on all 3 downs. They're both good against the run and the pass. Chandler Jones is a sack artist, while Max Crosby is a pressure artist. It's a perfect combination where Crosby can be tenacious off the snap, and Chandler Jones can capture you with his length. Kyler Fackrell is a hybrid linebacker, edge player, Patriot-esque edge who's now going to find his home in this system. I could see him playing a Kyle Van Noy type role for the Raiders here. And then you've got younger players like Clelin Ferrell, who was a high draft pick, who has talent, but has never really been able to get the most out of it in any system. I could see him being a rundowns player on the edge. And then Kuntz is a player that they really like for his athleticism and his speed off the edge. So he's another young type of pass rusher. This is a depth chart that's primarily on the top 2, but you've also got some other younger players and hybrid players that can mix in rotation. At number 4, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers. Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack is arguably, if not the, in my opinion, most dominant duo that will set foot on an NFL field this season. Mack and Bosa are absolutely going to dominate. Both can stop the run. Both can get to the quarterback. Mack is a power monster, and Joey Bosa uses his speed to power better than just about anybody as well. Kyle Van Noy is that linebacker edge player hybrid that he's always been, where he could play linebacker on first and second. He can play edge on third down. He's very good in coverage. He's very instinctual. He's very smart. And then you add in a younger player like Rumpf, who, if Mack needs a break, if Bosa needs a break, he can contribute as a pass rusher as well. So a nice 4 set of pass rushers for the Chargers. I feel like if they had maybe one more player, they would be number 1. I just don't see the absolute insane depth that some of these other teams offer, but they do have the most dominant duo. At number 3, I've got the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney was quietly maybe the best duo in the league last year, or at least it was up there. Jadeveon Clowney saw a resurgence in his pass rush, contributing as more of a Robin to Myles Garrett's Batman, and that really helped him get to the quarterback last year. He's already and always been a phenomenal run defender. We know what Myles Garrett can do. He's got to be double teamed. He's got to be triple teamed, or else you're going to get sacked. Chase Winovich was a very savvy pickup by the Browns. He fits their system extraordinarily well. He can pin his ears back and get to the quarterback, something he was unable to do in New England. I think he will sack the quarterback this year. They drafted a kid named Wright, who's got some upside from the 3rd round. Stephen Weatherly has been around the NFL for a while as a rotation edge. Same as Rochelle as well, played on the Colts, played on the Chargers, and Curtis Weaver has even played a little bit. So they got like 5-6 guys that have NFL experience or are just very good at football. I see it primarily being Garrett and Clowney, but Chase Winovich could be a dangerous 3rd guy on this edge to make this pass rush go over the top. The number 2 edge depth chart in the league is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, they just have insane quality when it comes to 4 to 5 players that could legitimately start in the NFL for a few teams at the very least. You've got Hassan Reddick, who the last 2 seasons has had double-digit sacks. He comes over from Carolina. I know that he's listed as a linebacker, but he is an edge pass rusher, and I expect him to do plenty of that in Philadelphia. Brandon Graham is another guy that comes back from injury that's a little bit older, so we're unsure how good he'll be, but I'm sure he'll still be good because most of where his good comes from is his technical aspect of his game. Derek Barnett is a really solid player. He's not extraordinary by any means, but he gets the job done. And then you've got a player that I've always liked in Sweat, Josh Sweat. He can really get to the quarterback, use his quickness off the ball. He's got great athleticism. He can get to the QB. And even Teron Jackson has some upside as a pass rusher and has contributed as a depth player. So that's 4 to 5 players, especially the top 4, where you've seen them start in this league. You've legitimately seen them play starting snaps, and now some of them are backups. They're coming off the bench. They're going to be fresh. That's why I love this unit. At number 1, you have the San Francisco 49ers. In my opinion, this is probably a unit that's slept on, that shouldn't be slept on. They've got like 6 to 8, I'm not even exaggerating, pass rushers that can play and that can contribute in a variety of ways. And they've built a very good room when it comes to flexibility and versatility. Nick Bosa is one of the best edge players in the NFL, and at any given season could go off for 20 sacks. That's how talented he is. He sets everybody else up for success. You've got Samson Ebukam, who I think is extremely underrated as both a run defender and a pass rusher, and even an athlete to play outside linebacker and drop back into coverage, but he was very successful as a pass rusher last year for San Francisco. Kamiko Ture, I've always been a fan of since he was drafted as a really raw pass rusher that can use finesse, speed, and bend to get to the quarterback. I expect him to have a good season with San Francisco. Drake Jackson was a second-round pick, ton of upside, with similar traits to Ture to bend and get to the quarterback. They just released D Ford, but they did bring in Kerry Hyder, who had, I believe, 9 or 10 sacks just 2 seasons ago with this team, and Seattle tried to sign him. It didn't work out in that system, but trust me, it will work out in San Francisco because he's a perfect fit there. Charles Omenihu is a hybrid D-tackle D-end who can play the run really well, but also contribute as an interior pass rusher. And then even Jordan Willis can play a little bit. So that is just an insane amount of players that have experience, have a variety of skills, and this is a unit that I just think sends waves at a quarterback. At the linebacker position, it's very rare to see a team nowadays with 3 good linebackers. It's actually extremely rare. And that's crazy to say because teams back in the early 2000s, even the early 2010s, expected to have 3 linebackers that contributed. But nowadays, it's really 2 starters and then 1 backup. And that's really what you're looking for. Even teams that just have 2 really good linebackers could make this list. Like number 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have Devin White and Lavonte David. And as much as Devin White had a down season last year, I fully expect him to be motivated and him to be ready for a huge season in 2022. I think Devin White's going to go off. I think he's motivated. I think he's a bit angry, and he's somebody that has a pretty big ego, so he's going to let you know when he's successful, but he is an absolute unique player in the NFL with his pursuit, his speed, his sideline to sideline ability. It is absolutely unique to this league is Devin White. And you've got Lavonte David, the steady vet who's been one of the best linebackers in the league for at least a decade, if not more. That combination is really awesome and sets up the BUCS for success in the middle. Behind them, you have a solid contributor who's going to see more time this year in KJ Britt. They lost Kevin Minter, or at least they haven't signed him yet, as the special teams ace, and Britt has flashed some upside in the past as an athlete. I do think he'd be an upgrade in terms of coverage and just overall mobility at the position to Minter, who's a little bit slower and a little bit older. My number 2 linebacker unit in the league is the Indianapolis Colts, led by Darius Leonard, my top linebacker in the NFL today. I just feel like he's a complete playmaker when it comes to the run game, when it comes to blitzing, when it comes to coverage. Darius Leonard can do it all. He's complemented by Bobby Okereke, who really good, talented player with speed, with coverage ability, and has great range to play within this system. Even Franklin, the 3rd linebacker, this is where they separate for me from the BUCS, has experience and has played well in his time there. The Colts don't quite have the trio that they used to have when Anthony Walker was there, but Franklin has filled in admirably as that 3rd linebacker. That's why they're at number 2. At number 1, I've got the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are one of the teams that still use a lot of linebackers, and they expect their linebackers to play sometimes in ridiculous roles. Fred Warner just is incredible with his coverage ability, being able to take on slot receivers and tight ends with regularity. Dre Greenlaw was hurt a lot last year, but is a very good linebacker himself. And then my boy Azeez is actually a really underrated player who replaced Dre Greenlaw last year and kind of outplayed him last season and had a flash as a great athlete in space to be able to tackle in the run game. And he's just a guy that has a reckless abandon to his game as well. So the San Francisco 49ers have the best trio in the NFL today. That's why I give them the top spot. At the safety position, I'm looking for an awesome trio at safety. A safety that can play free safety in the back end. A safety that's versatile, that can cover tight ends, that can be the cover guy over the middle of the field, but also play the run. And then a safety that is primarily a box safety. That's kind of the perfect trio of safeties in the league today. If you have a fourth, that's even better. At number 3, I've got the Cincinnati Bengals. Jesse Bates, Von Bell, and now Daxton Hill, the first-round pick, who's a hybrid corner safety player. Jesse Bates has yet to come to training camp, but is one of the best rangy free safeties in the NFL today, with his ability to cover immense range from sideline to sideline, break up passes, jump the football, and I thought he had an incredible playoffs last year. One of the best players in the playoffs last season. Von Bell is an incredible box safety, but also don't sleep on his safety skills. Very good against the run, very good coming downhill, but also very smart at reading a quarterback. Then we got Daxton Hill, who's going to be the hybrid nickel player. He can play outside perimeter. He's got great speed. He's got great range. He's got great man-to-man ability. He's got good zone ability, and he can tackle. This guy is a complete football player. The number 2 safety depth chart in the league today is the Baltimore Ravens. It begins with their new signing, Marcus Williams, who is one of the best free safeties in the NFL today, especially when it comes to playing deep. Marcus Williams covered up everything for the New Orleans Saints deep down the field. His range was impeccable. His break on the football was the best, I would say, in the game. I mean, his ability to time things, hit players, break up passes, and just generally avoid big plays given up and allowed was a savior for the Saints last year. He is a very smart football player. You've got Hamilton, Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, who they picked high in the draft. I expect him to be a hybrid coverage player when it comes to covering tight ends, when it comes to playing in the nickel, when it comes to playing in the box, even deep. I think Kyle Hamilton can succeed in the NFL in all spaces and all places. He is that good. He is that special. He is that unique. I just can imagine how quickly they are going to suffocate passing games with how quickly they diagnose things in the back end. You've got Chuck Clark, who is a just really old school safety where he can come downhill and make plays in the run game. And even Brandon Stevens is another unique player where he's big, he's rangy, he's long, and he can break up passes, play in coverage, play in the run game. But he's a very nice number 4 safety. I think he could start on some teams, to be honest. And then we've got the number 1 safety depth chart in the NFL is the New England Patriots, led by Devin McCourty, the ageless wonder who's somehow getting better at this age while his brother retires and goes to Good Morning Football. Devin McCourty is getting that red jacket and Patriots Hall of Fame. He's trying to win one more bowl. I'm not sure if he will, but he's trying his best. He's still really good. Still got great speed, still got great makeup speed, still got that range, still got that coverage ability, man or zone, and I just think he's one of the best leaders there is on the defensive side of the football in the NFL. Adrian Phillips is a really underappreciated strong safety who can play on tight ends, who can play in the box, who can actually line up at linebacker and take on guards and play in the run game. He's got that type of ability as well, and so does Kyle Duggar, who's kind of like a hybrid linebacker safety, the athleticism of a safety, the kind of the strength of a linebacker, and the speed of a corner sometimes. I mean, this guy can break on the football and take it the distance. He's a very instinctual player, and he's also just a unique weapon where he could be utilized rather deep in your defense or in the box. That is why Kyle Duggar is one of the most underappreciated safeties in the game. And then you got Jabril Peppers, who they also signed, formerly of the Browns, end of the Giants, Peppers is mostly a box safety, but he does remind me quite a bit of Patrick Chung and what he used to do for this defense. So you could see Jabril Peppers do that sort of deal where maybe he's covering some safeties, maybe he's a hybrid blitzer. He's going to do a lot of different things. I'm excited to see where Belichick places him on this defense. At the cornerback position, I think you need more than 3 corners to be a top unit. I think you need 4. So there are some teams with a really good trio, but they didn't quite have that 4th corner that I was really looking for, because when one of those corners goes down, you need the next one to step up. And when teams go spread, when they go empty, you need corners that can come off the bench and play man-to-man and be able to lock up. So let's begin at number 4. I did 4 depth charts here because I just couldn't decide. I got the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are one of those teams that more so have 3 corners, but it's a really good trio. They've got Alexander, Stokes, Douglas as that starting trio. Douglas was out of his mind amazing last year. I wonder how good he'll be this year after his breakout season a year ago. He's probably going to man the nickel position, and I like that for him because he's very instinctual. He can read the football, he can break on the football, and he can make plays that way. Got a lot of picks last year. On the outside, you've got Alexander returning to his typical shutdown role, where to me, he is the best man-to-man corner in the game today. At number 2 spot, you got the second-year player, Stokes, who's a very good athlete, can run with anybody, he's got good length, and he's been an upgrade from what they actually wanted Kevin King to be. That's kind of what Stokes is, and Nixon is their number 4. We haven't seen much from him, but that's kind of who they rotated in last year as their number 4. So we'll see if he can make some plays as well in 2022. At number 3, we've got the Baltimore Ravens. Once again, in the secondary here, Marlon Humphrey is the do-it-all corner who's a great playmaker, who can punch the football out, who can make plays on the football in the air, who can tackle really well, who's physical. He sets the tone for this defense. Marcus Peters is the ball hawk who's returning to the lineup, hopefully the same player on the perimeter. Kyle Fuller is going to be manning the nickel position, which I think will be a new position for him if it's not Hamilton who's doing that for this defense. And then lastly, but certainly not least, Jalen Armour Davis of Alabama was really good and actually really effective for them, not allowing like any catches. Like his stats were really, really good, and he's got good size and he's got solid speed and he's pretty smart. I didn't really understand why he wasn't a higher like touted prospect coming out of Alabama, but he might be a sleeper. You know, Baltimore can find these corners, and I think they found another depth piece here in Armour Davis. At number 2, you got the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are quietly a very good secondary with really good corners, especially corners that are really fast and got really good range. So I am going to be intrigued to see if they play more man coverage this year with this cornerback group. You've got Denzel Ward, who's one of the like most silent good players in the NFL. Like nobody talks about this guy, but he's really good, and he's been good for the last like 3-4 years. And lockdown corner, absolutely one of the 10 best in the NFL today. Newsome is a new player, second-year player, who had a really good, strong rookie season as one of the starting corners for them. Greedy Williams could play in the nickel this year. He's a really fluid coverage player and great athlete, and was one of those players who kind of got underdrafted, and I feel is starting to kind of come into his own after his first couple of seasons were injury riddled. And then the number 4 corner, you have Emerson, who's a rookie who they drafted, I believe, in the 3rd round, who's got some upside as a longer corner who can play press, who's got decent ability to run as well. And then AJ Green, no, not that AJ Green, the other AJ Green, who actually, when he played last year, graded very, very well. This is a very good cornerback group that I think a lot of people sleep on. The number 1 cornerback group in the NFL today is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are my number 1. JC Jackson, You sign him. You sign Bryce Callahan to man the nickel, who's been one of the best nickel corners in the NFL in recent seasons. You have Asante Samuel Jr. entering his second year. You have Michael Davis, a starting caliber corner, as your number 4 coming off the bench. And even Campbell as a number 5 who's played some snaps in this league as a depth player. This is the most complete room, in my opinion, in the league. You've got a very good nickel player, a number 1 corner who can play man, zone, or pick off a pass, and you've got Asante Samuel Jr. who can match up with the quicker guys, right? He's smaller, he's a read and react player, and then Michael Davis, who's a bigger guy who can match up with some of the bigger receivers in the league. Bryce Callahan, who's the nickel player who can match up with speed, quick guys as well. So you've got a lot of matchups, and you've got a lot of corners who can play on a lot of different players. So that's why I think it's the most complete group. When I think about cornerback rooms, I think about what you have to face at wide receiver, which is typically basketball teams, right? You've got the point guard, you got the power forward. Corners got to be able to match that, in my opinion. So that's what you have in the Los Angeles Chargers. And those are the most loaded position groups in the NFL on the defensive side of the football. Let me know yours in the comment section below. It's Mitch. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.